Wilkinson-Sanders, and I greet you from sunny, hot Vegas, where I'm out here for a couple of days on business and a little bit of pleasure. I want to continue on our journey toward building wealth and talk to you about something that you probably haven't thought about, and that is protecting your assets. We've been talking about building assets, but as you start to build your wealth portfolio, you want to think very hard and very long about protecting those assets. And it's really very involved when you start talking about protecting your assets. Many people, when you start thinking about protecting assets, they think about putting it in an account where it's insured, or they start thinking about insurance, and those are certainly things that you want to take into consideration. But protecting assets is a huge topic that we're not going to get through completely today, but I want you to at least start thinking about that, thinking about those things as you start planning out, as you start growing your portfolio. So, we talk about having your team of professionals. We talk about having your attorney. We talk about having your accountant, your tax accountant, your investment manager. You want to have a financial planner that is going to help you along the way as you start talking about protecting your assets. And so, when you start talking about protecting assets, the biggest asset, the most important asset is yourself, right? So, you want to have your Obamacare, you want to have your health insurance. But when you start talking about insurance, think about the fact of what happens if something happens to you, if something physically happens to you. So not only do you want to have health insurance, but you want to have short-term care insurance, long-term care insurance, and some sort of insurance in case you can't work, so that you still have income coming in on a regular basis. So you're going to talk about that, think about that as you're planning your portfolio. And as we talk about care, of course, everyone talks about having a will, putting it in trust. Do you have a living will? Do your family members know what your wishes are if something happens to you and you are incapacitated and cannot make decisions for yourself? It's very important that you have that living will in place now, and that you have people who are in charge of your living will, who understand what your wishes are and who are of the same mindset as you when it comes to carrying out those plans. A lot of times you put people in place and they say, yeah, they understand, but if they don't have the same belief system as you, they may not carry out your wishes. So keep that in mind as you are putting together your living will. Living wills can come into really good big play as your assets start to grow. So you want to start planning out not only for your lifetime, but past your lifetime, where you want your assets to go. Because at some point in time, we all die. And so if you can put protections in place now, so that when you pass away, or even during your lifetime, you can plan out the moving of those assets so that you have the most effective process for that, and also the most cost-effective process, so that costs you and your loved ones the least amount of money as far as handling those assets and the taxes associated with those assets. So that's another thing that you want to think about. The financial planning is a huge thing. So, we talk about, just in the course of being wealthy, about having businesses, but having and putting your assets into a business is another protection. So you want to take the liability off of you and put it into a business, so that if something happens, if someone sues, they're only suing for that particular asset or that particular group of assets, as opposed to suing you for everything that you own. So that's a huge thing. And we talked a while back about business structures, and so you want to spend a lot of time with your financial financial plan or with your tax accounts, with your accounts, strategizing, and with your attorney, strategizing about business structures and what business structures to have based on certain circumstances. Now, I am just touching on the surface when we're talking about protecting assets. People think about, when they think about insurance, they think about auto insurance because you have to have it by most laws. People think about homeowners insurance, but a lot of times they don't have the right protection given the type of asset, the type of protection they need. So you want to have a good insurance agent that's going to help you through that process. As you are putting together your retirement funds, you want to think about protection of those retirement funds, the amount of guarantee that you have on those funds, as opposed to having them in accounts where there is no asset protection. So it's a huge thing, and as you plan your portfolio, you have to build that protection in, because you want the assets to not only last because of the way that you invest them, but you want them to last because you have reduced your risk as much as you possibly can. We will get into this a lot more in the future, but as you move forward, please keep in mind reducing your risk, reducing your liability, protecting your assets, and making sure that your assets grow to the largest amount they can for as long as they possibly can. I'm Sheila Wilkinson-Sanders, and I hope you have a wonderful, blessed, supreme day.